It's been a while since I've done anything on the Valisette, so I thought I'd better make a start on that again. My membership came up for renewal and I realized I've been a member for a year then and I haven't got very far, so I should get on with it. Still doing some work on the body. It's all stretched around the fuel tank, so I'm just shrinking that down. Previously repaired the tail where things have been cut off, repaired the sides where pieces have been cut off. It's going to need a bit of filler and stuff on it, but that'll be fine. I need to go through all of the engine components and figure out what I need and talk to the spares about doing a big order. Pretty sure I will have to take the crank apart to sort out the big end bearings. I'm not even sure where it is. It's around here somewhere. There it is. Because once I cleaned all of this and got all of the old oil out of it, there is quite a bit of movement there. So that would all have to come apart, be fixed. I can't remember if these bearings were okay. I'm pretty sure these ones were okay. There didn't seem to be much wear in those. But I want to get all of the body type parts and the frames cleaned up. I'm going to get them vapor blasted to get them nice and clean so I can repaint them. I've already cleaned up these as much as I could. I was kind of hoping I could just give it a quick de-rust and touch up the paint, but so much of the old paint came off, it's worth completely starting from scratch with these, strip them back to bare metal, repaint them. They're just painted black, so that's pretty easy. But I have been putting the suspension components, the springs and the struts. This is a container full of, it's kind of a cleaning solution. It's just a slightly caustic degreaser cleaner. I'm soaking all of the springs and struts and things in that, and I want to completely dismantle the front struts so I can get these all nice and clean, and these won't need blasting. I should just be able to wire brush these to get them clean, just to avoid any grit or anything getting into them. But I wanted to take them apart, so I had to go look up how to do that. It's pretty straightforward. So the spring is kind of held captive. It just kind of twists into these ends, so you untwist it and it unseats itself, and then the top section and the bottom section are free to move, and all there is the fork tube. There is a sliding bush, and this is a tight fit into this housing here. Then there's a fixed bush that goes on the end here. This was very tight and I had to use a little bit of heat, just gentle heat, and then I was able to tap that off with a wooden block, hammer and wooden block, so I didn't damage it. First you have to remove the little spring clip from the end here. You can see the groove there. And the way that you actually separate the two components, so once you remove the spring or uncaptive the spring like that, this will slide out, and you can see the top of that bush in there. And basically what the instructions say is you just keep pulling them apart and it slowly pulls that bush out. I found it easier to clamp this in the vise and to tap on the end here with again with a wooden block and a dead blow hammer, and then that bush will pull out of here and then this will come apart. You take off the spring clip and you can remove this. So that's all there is to it. These are handed. I'm going to keep the bushes bagged with the relative fork so I don't get them muddled up, because I think they should all, basically the parts should go back together the way they came apart. The springs shouldn't matter, they're going to be very similar. But there's a cover that fits over here, a dust shield, a metal tube that's in the cleaning solution. So what I'll do now is bag these up before I forget and take apart the second one, and then I'm going to leave that soaking in that solution probably over the weekend, clean it up, figure out what other little bits and pieces I need to take to the blasting guy, and then maybe I can sort that out during the week. But I'll put this strut in the vise and show how you get that bush out. So this is set up in the vise now. That's how the spring just kind of unclips from its little seat there. It's going to need a screwdriver or something to push it back in. So I need to take that off. And the manual just suggests you pull them apart smartly. So, like that. And you can see the bush is already kind of extracting itself. And there's the moving bush, here's the fixed one, and you can see it's very tight, it won't rotate on there. So what I need to do now is, on the other one I tapped this back a little bit just in case there was any pressure on that little clip, and then I was just able to leave that off. Gently heat this and then tapped it off with a block of wood. Which worked fine. And the struts are handed because one of them has the little attachment for the brake cable, and to avoid messing up the slider piece, I'm just using cable ties. I've got one on the other one to mean the left hand one, and I'll put two around this one to mean the right hand one, and that just saves me getting them muddled up. My cleaning solution seems to be doing the job. There's oil coming out of everything, which is good. Once I take them out of there, I'll probably put them through the parts washer and make sure they're really clean. The bushes I've put through the ultrasonic cleaner to get them nice and clean, and they're just now bagged up again, soaking in oil. And I'm still playing around with the body. Trying to get this section here smoothed out is really hard, because it's really hard for me to get behind it, and it's all stretched. So I've been trying to heat shrink it, which just adds a lot more distortion, and then you have to kind of try and clean all of that out. It's a weird shape, and this here pulls it down, so I can't get this properly flat, but I'm just trying to get some of the oil canning out of it and then smooth it off. It's really hard. I've been using my slapper file, just to see if I can use that to help smooth it off and shrink down some of the high bits, and that does seem to work. The biggest problem is getting something solid behind there, so I've been sitting it up on this, which kind of works, but I think I need a better way of doing it. That's the slapping file, literally made from a coarse file bent. So I'm hoping between that and hammer and dollies I can sort of smooth that out. It's just really awkward to work on, so I'll do the best I can. Once the seat's on there, actually you don't see a lot of that, but I'd still like it to be as good as possible. But that's probably it for the Valisette tonight, and maybe in the weekend I'll look at cataloguing all the parts I need. Been working on the body of this Velocette all day, and I'm never going to get it perfect or even very good. It's been so hacked around, so mangled. Obviously I've fixed up the tail where that was cut off. I've fixed up these where those sides were cut off, but it's really hard to get a nice smooth weld in there. I've done the best I can, bit of filler and it should be okay. This area here is all completely mangled, and I've been trying to tidy it up a bit. It's all stretched, I think, and it's kind of a funny shape because of the way this box is welded in and it's not flat across here. It's actually got a dip in it. So I'm not sure if this is supposed to be completely flat or have a little bit of crown, or how that's supposed to work. So it's flat here where the seat part bolts on, and it just kind of curves up a bit. And I have a separate plate of steel inside there. This was all broken. It had cracked. Somebody had drilled the ends of the cracks and then made some other plate. It was just a mess. So I've welded all of that up the best I can, tried to smooth it out as best I can. And there's now a separate piece of sheet metal inside there to give it kind of a double skin to help spread the load inside there a bit. And then once that bracket goes on there, it should be nice and strong. This has all been banged up, and this is very hard to fix because there's the glove box in there, so you can't get behind there easily. Again, done the best I can. Skimmer filler, should be okay. And sort of dents up in here, like, you know, there's no easy way to get dents like that out because you can't get behind there. And this is also double skinned, so you can't even get to the back of these little ripples. You'd have to take all of that apart to get that perfect. It's going to be good enough. It's going to be a beat up kind of bike, I think. I'm almost tempted to paint it olive drab or some flat kind of color like that, where anything military looking you expect it to be all dinged up. But I'll see what sort of paint and stuff I can get. So I'm kind of getting sick of working on the body, but it's getting there. I might still try and smooth some of this out. When it's flat like that, at least the kind of oil canning is gone now, most of it. I think if I get this to come up a bit, it might be a little bit smoother, and at least there it's flat. That's okay, where the seat mounts. And my suspension parts in the cleaning solution, it's definitely taken some of the oil out. I was hoping it might loosen the paint, which it looks like it is as well, so that when I get it blasted it'll be a bit easier. I need my chemical gloves before I can pull those out. That stuff's fairly caustic, but I'll pull something out and have a look at it. And to help do some of this, to sort of try and planish some of this smooth, there's a big dent there, I ended up making a sort of stake dolly thing. Just a lump of steel. I welded a solid steel bar to it, so I can put that in the vise, and I could sit the bike on top of that and try and use that as a dolly, which definitely helped. Again, this side had holes all through it. This cover has been taken off where it was originally spot welded on. You can see where they've cut out the spot welds and then made it so it bolts on. I'm not going to try and fix that. I think if I try to weld in the missing pieces on this, I'm just going to make a hash of it, probably mangle it. So we'll just leave it how it is, and that'll bolt back on there. That's all just surface rust. I think a little bit more, just trying to get the rest of that, just that bit there. I think if this can kind of be smooth a little bit coming into here, then it won't look too bad when it's all assembled. I think that's kind of it for the body. And I still haven't got round to actually cataloguing all my parts and figuring out what I need. So I'll do that next. I've bolted the seat in place. Not sure where the bottom spring mounts are. They'll be in a box somewhere. It doesn't look too terrible. It's still not right, but I think, because the other problem I had was the lid, which had been cut up so somebody put gauges in it. So that was all mangled up. I think once it's all together it won't be too bad, hopefully. But this piece is flat, and I've got my strengthening piece in there. You can see that bends. Yeah, there's too much metal there. It's been stretched. So I did shrink it. I did heat shrink it quite a bit. It was way worse than this before. And so that has made it a bit better, but there's no oil canning in it now. But I'm not sure if this was, I think this was originally quite flat. This isn't. This has got shape to it. Oh well, I'll just do the best I can. I'm finishing up for the day. Just had a spa. It's been a really nice, very clear winter's day. It's been chilly, and you might be able to see way in the distance there, there's snow on top of the hills. But I've got quite a lot done. I'm reasonably happy with how the bikes come out. The metalwork, I might still adjust it a little bit more. I'm getting to the point where I'm not going to make it much better. I did find the bits and pieces. I went through one of my boxes of parts and found the bits and pieces for the bottom of the spring mounts for the seat, and I've painted those up. And there are also these little angle brackets, and they bolt in here. So there's a little sort of right angle bracket that goes in there to give more support for the back of the seat. So I've painted those up, and I've done a few other little jobs. Nothing on the Riley today, but I did start, or I didn't start, I continued making the shelf for the Meccano Riley. Just cut some wooden blocks and they're glued on there. And I found a great period picture of cars racing at Brooklands in 1930, and you can see how broken up the track is even then. But that gives me a good idea of the size of the concrete strips and how the concrete's all cracked. So what I will do is paint this up, texture it maybe, and based on that drawing I can put in the lines for where the joins in the concrete are and some cracks and things. So I need to look at some films on how to build dioramas, I guess. There's a good, very amusing YouTube channel. He doesn't have too many films, but the ones he has are very good, called Bobby Fingers, and he makes little dioramas and various other things. So I'll watch some of those for inspiration. And I haven't yet got to cleaning up my Meccano. I just need to collect all of this up and wipe it all down, probably with a ACF 50 soaked rag, just to stop it rusting any further. And I also didn't get to my parts that have been soaking, so maybe tomorrow I'll be able to take those out and clean them up. It should have got most of the oil out of them, I think. It looks like that's all come to the surface. And when I do get back on the Riley, next time I do my welding, I'm going to try using this. This is aluminium MIG wire. So I'll see how that works as filler rod for doing my oxyacetylene welding. And the Riley, I was going to do an update on that, but I'm not sure I will, because it's more of the same. It's just trying to get the panels right, wheeling them up. I did set up my lower anvils on the lathe and filed the flat in the middle to make sure it's actually flat. There is debate around whether the anvils are better having a flat or better having a full radius. There's all sorts of information out there about it. There are some interesting films One of them talks about, well, if it's flat, you're only ever going to get flats in the metal, but they seem to be forgetting that the metal is bendy, it's flexible. So this piece, for example, I can pretty much flatten this out by hand and it'll spring back to where it needs to go. So the fact that there's a flat there doesn't mean the metal's going to stay flat when you take it out of the rollers. It'll spring back. But cleaning those up has made a difference. I get less furrows. This piece, I needed a lot more shape in the sides, so I actually did that on the sandbag with a mallet. You can probably see the marks on the inside. And that's coming along. I think I still need a bit more shape in here. It's flat in there. So it's just a matter of working the panels. I've got a flat there, might even be able to see it. Just sort of bring that up. But I don't think there's much value in me continually talking about my struggles with wheeling. It's just one of those things you just have to do and practice to get good at, I think. And I don't know that I'll ever do enough to get really good at it. The people who are really good at it are all the people who have been doing it for years professionally. So I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'll get it good enough. This panel I did, it has got some pretty deep gouges in it, which actually came from the top wheel, just because it's an awkward shape. And a couple of times I caught the top edge and managed to put some deep scores in it. But again, this is going to be painted, so that'll a skim layer of filler will take care of that, no problem. The other thing I did is I bought some barbecue paper, hoping it would be thicker than normal brown paper, and it's a little bit thicker, but not as thick as I thought. But next, when I do the next lot of panels, I will use that to get the shape of the panel and figure out where the shrinking and stretching needs to be done, or the stretching, because this is all curved outwards. And I'm going to do this in 3 sections, which is how they did the originals. So go with what they did, that seems to make sense. But it is coming along and it is starting to look more or less the right shape. It'd be really interesting to know on an original if there was such a thing. I don't think there are anymore, you know, how good the finish on them was. I did look at, I went back through my library of period photos, and it's hard to tell because the photos are all taken from a little way back, and you don't actually have to get that far back for everything to look really good. But there aren't any really close-up pictures of what the finish was like, and these are just black and white printed versions, but it's hard to tell from these. Sort of what they look like. This is a restored car. These would have been original, but yeah, you can't tell from that. But yeah, it's slowly getting to where it needs to be. So I think tomorrow I will keep working on this. I can see having the fluorescent strip lights is quite handy because you can look at the reflection and you can see it's all wobbly, which shows you where all the highs and the lows are. But overall the shape's getting there. Sunday now, so back onto the Riley after I cleaned some Valisette parts. But it's quite a cold morning. There's a hawk. Yeah, so we had another frost overnight, and I suspect it's fairly frozen. So another great day bit chilly this morning. As you would have seen, there was frost and ice in the bird baths, but the sun's come out now and it's actually quite warm. So I've been taking the opportunity to keep cleaning up Velocette front suspension parts, and I've painted the springs. So those are front and rear springs. I've painted my shelf that the Meccano Riley is going to go on, and I've been wire brushing and sandblasting and cleaning up all of the front and rear suspension. So these are the forks that I did yesterday. Cable ties so I know which one is left hand and which one is right hand. I only have to mark these, of course, because these are handed. The rears I didn't bother, because probably the fronts it doesn't matter either, but the rears are set up in a similar way where there are these bushes that go on the end and there's a little spring clip that holds them in place. That bush rides up and down inside here, which is the rear shock, and this thing's full of grease. Took me quite a while to get the grease out. Using the parts washer worked well, but it was freezing cold this morning, so it wasn't very pleasant. And these bushes are pretty worn out. I think they're 1 inch diameter outside, or they're supposed to be. The inside isn't worn because it's quite a tight fit on here. Again, I had to use heat to heat these up slightly so I could knock them off, but that worked fine. But you can see probably that that one is oval. So is this one. Yeah, there's a lot of wear on them, and I'm assuming they should be a nice tight fit in these tubes, and you can see they're not. So they're definitely worn out, but I should be able to get new ones of those easily enough. So these have all just been cleaned up. I got all the paint off. I've cleaned up all the hardware and the little mounts. There are the little spring clips. I sandblast and then ultrasonic clean all the nuts and bolts, and then I've been chemically blackening them so they don't rust, and then soaking them in oil basically. So these are ready to be painted whatever color I end up painting the bike. So for now everything's just wiped down in ACF 50 to stop it all rusting. These are the shields, the dust shields that go somewhere. I can't even remember how it goes back together. Luckily I have another set. I just arbitrarily chose a pair to rebuild, so I think as long as I replace those bushes they should be fine. But I think the dust shield goes on this way from the top, so that would make sense. I've had these sitting in that bucket thing to soak up any oil. Yeah, so the shields go on like that. They're all obviously painted body colour, and I still need to clean up all the brake parts, the headlamp, all sorts of little bits and pieces. I was going to send these off for blasting when I send off the bits of the frame, but I didn't want to risk getting any grit into the bits, and I found it was easy enough to wire wheel them. Looks like they had some sort of coating. I don't know if that was like a chromed coating, but you can see where it's coming off. Kind of feels like chrome or some sort of plating. It's not paint, but I think these will be fine when they're painted up. I'll edge prime them and paint them. So I need to sort out new bushes. I'll try and get new bushes all around, I think. Might as well, even though I'm re-soaking those ones. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. The body's still in the same state as I left it yesterday. I might try and get some phosphoric acid to clean off the surface rust and coat it. There was some really good stuff you used to be able to get called Kefos, which then ended up changing name to become Paint Grip 453, some variation in numbers, and then I think it changed again, so I haven't been able to find any. But that stuff was always really good for keeping bare steel from rusting. And I think I need to put another coat of paint on those springs. That rust kill paint I'm using takes ages to dry, so I'm going to leave them in the sun for a bit, and then I'll flip them over, give them another coat. It's quite hard painting springs to get in all the coils. You sort of have to attack them from every single direction basically. But these are looking good, and I think maybe this afternoon will be spent trying to build up a big list of all the parts I need. Didn't quite get to sorting out my parts. I had some visit, so I was catching up with them for a little while. But I did paint my rear springs, and they were sitting out in the sun. Well, there was some sun, hardening. So the paint I use is a enamel paint, and it's a true enamel. The stuff's really good. You can put it on clean metal without any undercoat and it'll just stick to it. It's easy to touch up because you can just spray it. It's easy to clean up with terps, and I find it works really well on cleaned springs and things like that. Managed to get 3 of the springs inside without dropping them, and then the last one I dropped and it fell straight onto the filthy rug. Got covered in fluff and chihuahua fur and grass and all sorts of crap. So I had to clean that one off and repaint it. I was doing that outside. I'd almost finished, and then I dropped it again. So it got covered in grass and crap. So I had to clean it up again. So this one's been painted about 3 times, and it's still got bits stuck to it. But I'm going to leave that there now to dry. It takes a couple of weeks to really go properly hard. You can bake it as well. And the good thing with this stuff is it comes in tins as well, so I can spray it with my air compressor spray gun. And the other thing I only just realized is they do different colors. You can get it in spray cans, pre-mixed different colors, but they also do a base coat tint system. And I can get this tinted to be the right kind of sort of silvery grey. It's more grey than silver, I think, colour that these Valisettes originally were. So I think that's what I will do, is when the time comes, I'm going to get some of this mixed up to be that kind of light grey colour, and I'm going to paint it that. The good thing about a lighter colour is it hides some of the imperfections in the bodywork a bit better than a dark colour or black. So I think that's what I'll do. I rang the local hardware place, and yes, they can do that. They can mix it up. I can get it in 1 litre tins or 4 litre tins. And you can also use a primer with it. It does have an etch primer. I've probably got some somewhere. This super etch primer, so I can etch prime it as well to make the paint stick even better. And I think that'll work well on that sort of bike. It's the right sort of paint for that kind of era. But that's where I'm finishing up for the weekend, I think. And I didn't get to do anything on the Riley at all. So that'll be during the week. And then I'm away for a little bit. So it'll be after I get back.